Hi, I'm Joe Walmsley, Managing Director at ALANG Glass Studios. During the strange time of Corona, we have decided to create a CPD presentation that we would normally present first person to our fantastic customers, the designers and architects that bring us into these brilliant projects. So here's a collection of the samples and the presentation that I'll show, and through the slides as they progress, they should appear closer on your screen. This is our gallery studio, the space I'm stood in now, and this is based up in the northwest of England, in Lancashire. And here's a picture of our founder, my mum, Davia, back in 1986. I'm sure they had colour photos back then. And here is what we do. This is specialist glass, decorative glass for the luxury market. We design, manufacture and install. And I joined the company a number of years ago, but took over the MD position in 2017. The expertise, the in-house skills that we have are very varied, and I'm confident in saying it, the most varied in the UK, and some of them are broadest in Europe as well. So we cover a number of disciplines from stained glass, which is also known as leaded lights, etching, silvering, cutting, painting, all the way through from the cold processes into the warm, so laminated, which are in between as I'll come to, and then into your hot glass processes, which are kiln formed, fused, slumped and cast. The facilities, although that was quite a modest building in the photo, the first slide, they are an old farm, so they're quite sprawling, but they're quite large as well, as you can see. And the amount of plant and machinery we've invested in over the years allows us to cover all those disciplines. And that is a collection, as you can see, from high temperature glass kilns all the way through to the cold processes, and then on the installation side with lifting robots that will carry half a ton of glass, which we don't have to lift on our own anymore, which is good. So in terms of what we offer to the customers, fitting in with the solutions they're looking for, we try to approach most projects in the following process, which is the design phase, manufacturing, installation. Not all projects require this, but we start with a brief, so that's the requirement for the customer for the project, and then through a consultation process, quite often using our expertise across the years of experience and the glass processes, we go through to a quotation and sampling phase. As you can see from the collection here, we've got thousands of samples here at the studios, which we're happy to lend free of charge just to get the first buy-in by your customer, so you can see the products firsthand. Then once that process is carried through, hopefully the order follows, and then we get into bespoke design and control samples. So that's 3D, 2D CAD, BIM compliant drawings, and also the control samples, which will always be sort of to scale, to the exact finish, including non-glass components. And then once all of that stage is signed off, we're allowed to move into the manufacturing, and if we're doing installation, we will carry out the survey. So we're responsible for the sizes and final dimensions of all the finished pieces. And if that's not required, we move straight down to delivery. And again, this is most of the time in the UK, in London, but then it's overseas as well, so we've got good experience with freight and exports. Quick overview of our clients. Again, it covers the architects, interior designers and contractors. We also work with a number of artists over the years, but these are the ones of greatest note, and it's quite an international collection, so a lot based down in London, but again some overseas, and primarily this is where our body of work comes from for the most projects. We're either specified early on in the concept stage, or we are brought in by the contractor, as we know many of them these days that understand the variety of glass that we can manufacture. If they're having trouble trying to source a product, perhaps from overseas quite often, then we're able to help at that stage as well. Quick look at the different sectors that our projects tend to fall within, and as you can see, it's very broad. Again, we've got the sort of, I'd probably say, the sweet spot, which is the prime residences, super prime residences, the luxury hotels, and then the luxury retail and marine. And then there are other projects and sectors that we've worked in. We're not sector specific, we enjoy working with the material and getting involved in any project. So yeah, there's quite a number of the Royal Palaces as well, one of which we're doing at the minute. And here are some examples of those projects. We've got this, which is a great casting project, and one of the samples which is here. And this is Corinthian capitals that are both on the columns and pilasters, and a 36-piece arrangement that sits atop of the columns, and these pieces are in a Lalique design, so they are cast and then etched, so they diffuse light very well, again work as a light box. And the challenge with this particular installation was working around the structural I-beam, which is the centre of the column here, and working within a very small tight space, about 60 millimetres, which led us into 3D modelling, 3D printing for a lot of the footings and the early stages of the modelling process when we're working in wax. You can see the examples here. And all of that accurate design and engineering really allowed us to achieve what was a fantastic installation. The original concept here, which is Art Deco, but again there were about 50 of these column tops stretching across the pool hall in one of the biggest residences in London. Another project worth of mention is another private residence, this time a Royal Palace. We're on the phase 2 of this currently, and this is an Art Deco design that we work closely with the architect based in Cairo, but we eventually developed it beyond their original concept, using our expertise and knowledge of combining 13 layers of different glass processes, different glass finishes, into 3 tiers that we supervised in the installation, working alongside a local team, these chaps down here, along with my mum and I were on site and one of our senior installation managers. And yeah, that was about 6 months worth of work, 40 square metres of wall space, and the installation took about 10 days in Riyadh. Good one to be involved in. Again, super prime residence. This is our favourite sector really, and this time working in the south of France. Fantastic view over Cannes, wonderful house, and in several of the areas, public spaces in the main, some wet spaces here. We've got laminated fabrics, and combining that with kiln forming, all of which have the monogrammed emblem. So showing how you can work with different techniques and achieve very figurative designs that will tie through a project. The Savoy, so into the hospitality sector a few years ago now, and just one part of the project, the big refit that was televised a few years ago. This was the Beaufort bar and the bar front, so about 3 metres, 3 and a bit metres long. You can see the original piece here. And this is etching, although we would cast it now. Back in the day, we were etching and allowing us to create these little tiny pot marks with a hand drill, as you can see in this picture here. And the relief that was achieved was about 6 or 7 millimetres, which meant that the structure of the glass panel was lost through the etching process, and it became a bow, huge bow, sort of banana shaped panel, which of course, to make it safe, we had to then laminate that to a piece of toughened safety glass so it could be installed in a commercial space. Another hotel, one of London's finest, like the Savoy. This is the LANESBOROUGH, and working again in the public spaces, this time in the restaurant. So we've got the Celeste Restaurant wine stores, where we have double glazed units which work with switchable glass. So the switchable glass is where you have a current running through it, and when you flip that current on, it makes the panels opaque or it makes them clear. And then on front of the panels we have these very ornate traditional etching patterns and designs, which also run through on a lot of the permanent screens within the restaurant. And then that's further cold work. We also worked in the Belgravia suite with these fantastically ornate helmets. Designs all actually originated this time by Alberto Pinto. And here we are water jetting very complex shapes in the traditional bevel cluster technique, and then also working on the column pilasters with the Ionic style capitals. Lovely projects, all hand silvered and hand brilliant cut. Another hotel project again in London, one of my favourites, although in terms of glass not particularly complex, but great because we have 2 very different combinations of glass within the suites of the hotel, all 54 of them. And then throughout the public spaces as well, we worked with antique, hand-silvered glass, and we installed throughout the project, so all of those pieces into every space. This one, just a supply-only job, so collaborating with the lady at the top corner there, Emma Peascod, Studio Peascod, fantastic Vera Glamise gilder and artist. And so working at the time of this project, the scale was a little bit too much for Emma's studio facilities, so she came to us, as we have done with other artists and customers, and we worked with her sample and then created on a larger scale that went out to Qatar, to the Mandarin Oriental in Doha. And this is water gilding and working in a very traditional Arabic style, and then aging that gilding as well before laminating between the glass to protect it in the long term. Another hotel project a bit closer to home, up in Scotland, and again gilding this time, but more burnished gilding. So here we're working with imitation metal leaf, and then working it into panels, into tiles that went around the different mirrored areas within the project. And we didn't do the installation on this one, we worked with a local company, Thompson Contracts, based over in Blackpool. The RAC Club, this is quite an old project now, but it's a great one to mention because there's a combination of different glass techniques here. We have cast glass eggs, so you can see these light fittings atop of these columns, and then also a combination of old antique glass and antique silver glass, but then very contemporary fused glass, and combining that into a very Art Deco style installation. And not only the glass, but also the metal work that went with the light fittings and all of the components that are integrated with those pieces, and we installed all of that as well some time ago, right down the Palmer. Into the luxury retail sector, so again London focused, and this time again quite simple glass, not dissimilar to Cadogan, very popular and trendy over the last few years. The traditional reeded Pilkington product. This time we're combining that with coloured laminate, so not so much of a resin, but this time with a film, and then combining that with a mirrored back, so around some of the service areas, making those panels opaque, as opposed to most of them being transparent, and to great effect. It's a lovely little installation. Again, another one of the top retailers down in London, this time working in the clothing rails. And the design for this, we didn't manufacture the non-glass components, just the panelling and the attention to detail through what we call the tesseract design, which positions a grid square of bubbles, controlling where those bubbles sit in the fusing process is a great skill, good technique that we've mastered, and making sure that these are positioned and spaced exactly, so you've got the horizontal panels on the base of the unit and then the vertical panels that run through, and everything, it has that continuity. One worth mentioning with Kelly Hoppen, and yeah, this was, again, I mentioned before, sometimes the contractors approach us with a sample where they can't source the glass from the specified supplier, and if it's glass, we're happy to help. This is the case here, where we had a sample from Italy. Italy was shut down for just for August in this case, and we had a combination of colours and textures to match, which we achieved in tiles that we then actually very heavily textured and matched the colour exactly, and we installed these some horrible hours to make sure Harrods had everything in place and were open for business, and the launch of the Samsung concession. Again, another concession at Harrods, this time using laminated fabrics, semi-transparent, I think this was a linen, and also combining that with the metal brackets, the fixings, and also bonded lettering. So the non-glass components, as I like to call them, and again we've sourced all of those, manufactured all those and installed. This is a fantastic example of etching. So we have the York Racecourse, this is part of the VIP area, and it is a movable screen. So you actually have life-size horses and jockeys. And we took this from concept and the very early stages of just taking photographs of the horses in training in the field with the jockeys, and from those images we created vector drawings and line drawings which allow the stenciling, and the complexity and the depth of that is achieved by working on both sides of the glass at different depths, which allows that variation, the transmission of light and that sort of movement, and a very dynamic image to be created. It's one of my favourites. And of course this is all purposeful. It's an architectural installation. It's designed to fold away and be stored as and when it's needed. Another commercial project here, the public spaces in a residential development down in London, recently opened 2019. The challenge here, as often is the case with commercial projects, there's a fire rating. So the fire rating was required for the glass and the framework, both of which we manufactured or provided and installed. We manufactured the glass, we have a supplier for the metalwork, and working with the designer to achieve as close as possible to the brief and the concept, using a fairly limited amount of materials and varieties to achieve that fire rating. Another great example of etching here, and this is again one of my favourites. A lot of artwork origination involved in this, with a very broad brief or loose brief focused around the St Paul's and Millennium Bridge, the cityscape of London, with the south bank on the front of the panel and the north bank on the back, all stylised. And again, we created that line drawing and that artwork, which is good fun for the graphics and design team. That was based down in Paddington, that project installed. Moving into the other projects, so you can't win them all, can you? So often we create bespoke samples, and those bespoke samples never get taken forward, but it's worth mentioning and focusing on these. And a large part of the projects, which, you know, the most challenging for us to achieve budget on quite often, and timelines, are the casting. It's a really lengthy process, very labour intensive, material intensive, and here we've got some beautiful examples of castings in particular, one of which is in front of me here. So you can see this piece, these are a very clear trend that we're seeing within glass decoration, and having architectural mouldings cast in lead crystal or soda glass, and then having those silvered, so they're following very traditional designs. More contemporary styles are these, with you've got in the marine sector, so around super yachts, and that very sort of sea-themed shells and animals and things like that, which is all great fun. Other projects, yeah, we have, when we present this firsthand, we'll show you a bit more, because this is sensitive work, this is non-disclosed projects, and it's frustrating for us because these are the most exciting, these are the most challenging and the best looking. And yeah, as you can see, there's a few samples here, or examples I should say, mainly in the yacht sector, but also combining laminating, metalwork, glass in casting, and in lead crystal, where we've got a variety of different techniques and collaborations with companies, often art-based companies, who will originate some sculpture or some art direction, and we will create that in glass. I'll have to tell you more in person. And that's it. This is us, and we are DeDaling Glass Studios, based in Lancashire, and we love making with glass. Thank you very much.